It is 9 o'clock on your Saturday evening. It is the GOP primary night, and we are on air and online right now with a look at the numbers. It's a good night for former President Donald Trump and his supporters. Andrea Mock is standing by now in studio with a look at how the numbers are breaking down. Andrea.
Yeah, Dars, it was pretty incredible. Right as 7 o'clock hit and we were getting ready to go on air and the polls were just closing at 7 o'clock, the AP called the race for former President Donald Trump. Now, here is where we stand right now at 9 o'clock as far as the numbers go. 62% of the precincts reporting, and with that, more than 300,000 votes cast for Donald Trump, 192,000 for Nikki Haley. More than 1 million voters were expected to turn out today. Now, this is one of the rare counties right now where we can see Nikki Haley ahead. Let's look at this. In Richland County, she is expected to win Richland County, but right now she has 10,000 votes to Donald Trump's 7,000 votes here in our home county. That's with 51% reporting. Now, let's look at some of the other counties in the Midlands. Right here is Newberry. Now, this is one of the first counties that we started getting numbers from tonight, and you can see 100% reporting. They got in, their precincts got the job done, and they got these numbers back. 3,800 for former President Donald Trump. Former Governor Nikki Haley had 2,000 votes. Now, some other important counties in our area, we talked a little bit about Lexington County. Of course, that was Nikki Haley's home county. That was where she raised her family, and that was where she was first elected to the legislature here in South Carolina. But Donald Trump beating her on her home turf. 18,000 votes for Donald Trump, 14,000 for Haley. And I know Bamberg is a small county, but important to look at today as well. This is where she was born. We have 100% reporting in Bamberg. Donald Trump winning Bamberg, 637 votes. And let's not forget our friends out to the east in Sumter. A sizable win right now for Donald Trump. Yep, 100% of the precincts reporting he has 5,500 votes to Nikki Haley's 2,900. So where does this flush out when it comes to delegates? South Carolina, all of these counties together will have 50 delegates to give. Now, of those 50 delegates, 29 delegates immediately go to who won the state. So Donald Trump is getting all 29 of those delegates. And for the rest of the delegates, it gets broken down into our congressional districts. And 3 delegates will go to who wins each congressional district. So she could end up with a couple delegates. Now, the numbers you are looking at on your screen, this was before tonight's vote. So this is, of course, with New Hampshire, Iowa, and Nevada. Donald Trump has 63 delegates. Nikki Haley has 17. These numbers will change after tonight. And then the big day, of course, the GOP presidential convention will be in Milwaukee this year, and you will need 1,215 votes in order to win the GOP nomination. Not obviously the way that former Governor Haley wanted to end up today, but Darcy, she did take the podium just moments ago down in Charleston, and she said, I am headed to Michigan. Michigan will go to the voting box on February 27th.
You're right about that, Andrea. Obviously not the night that Haley was hoping for. This is the first election that she's participated in her home state of South Carolina that she didn't win. Let's listen in to what the former governor had to say just moments ago when she conceded the race to the former president.
There are huge numbers of voters in our Republican primaries who are saying they want an alternative. I said earlier this week that no matter what happens in South Carolina, I would continue to run for president. I'm a woman of my word.
Nikki Haley in Charleston, and we have our team coverage in the Low Country and here in Columbia as we're following Trump's campaign and Haley's campaign. Rachel Ripp is in the Low Country with Haley's supporters. Obviously, Rachel, not the night that they were hoping for, but as we heard from the former governor and former U.S. ambassador, she is going to continue to push forward in her campaign to be the next president of the United States.
Yes, that's right, Darcy. Nikki Haley, one of those sentiments in her speech tonight was not giving up. She's going to continue to run in this race. She also talked about how 40% is not nothing, getting that amount of the vote. She also talked about thanking her family, her supporters, everyone who's been behind her. Now, one of those people who's been behind her since she first announced her candidacy for President of the United States has been Tom Davis. He joins me now. So Tom, tell me a little bit about your reaction for tonight, you know, what you thought of her speech and everything.
I'm incredibly proud of her and her resolve and her willingness to go forward, not just for herself personally, but to offer Americans a choice about what kind of Republican Party do we want to be. Do we want to be a Republican Party that stands by our friends overseas, beside Israel, beside Taiwan, behind Russia, Ukraine against Russia? Or do we want to be isolationist? Do we want to focus on reducing debt? Do we want to focus on the border? Do we want to focus on cutting taxes? Those are things Nikki Haley stands for. People in America deserve a choice. We're deciding not only who's going to be the nominee of the Republican Party, but what kind of Republican Party, what kind of a party does it want to be? And Nikki Haley is giving us a contrast, and that's good.
Right. Now, what was one of the reasons you initially supported her? I know you've known her for 20 years. Why did you back her?
She and I got involved in politics at the same time. Back in 2004, I was the governor's chief of staff. She first ran for the State House in Columbia. I've known her for 20 years. I've seen her resolve. I've seen her will. I've seen her drive. I've seen her conservative principles. I've seen her overcome the odds. I see her never giving up. That is exactly the kind of person we need right now. We need somebody who will bring America together. Let's stand for what America stands for again. Let's not divide. Do we really think that Joe Biden is going to unite America? Do we think Donald Trump's going to unite America? No, we need to stand together as Americans. Nikki Haley has a conservative vision, but she wants to bring America together. She's somebody we can be proud of.
And last question for you, what do you think happens from here? Where do we go from here?
Well, she said tonight she's going to go to Michigan, and then she's going to get every one of the Super Tuesday states, and she's going to go ahead and deliver that message. Look, she's got the resources. She's got the ability to deliver that message. Radio, TV, direct mail, social media. I mean, why not have somebody out there giving a vision of the Republican Party that she believes in, giving Americans a choice? And let's decide what kind of Republican Party we want to be. That should be celebrated, not criticized.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thank you. And again, things are wrapping up here in Charleston tonight as we heard those remarks from Nikki Haley just wrapping up minutes ago. Everyone kind of tearing down the set here. So I'm going to send it back to you guys. Live in Charleston, Rachel Ripp, News 19, WLTX.
All right, thank you so much, Rachel. Now, Tom Davis, in case you weren't familiar with him, he is from Beaufort, and he is the legislature, the lawmaker here in South Carolina that just penned the hate crime bill and is working to try and get a compromise on that. But again, he says he fully supports her. He said they got into politics at the same time and that she's going on again to try and win that February 27th vote in Michigan.
Trump supporters excited about how things turned out for the former president tonight. He has won Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and now beating Nikki Haley on her home turf, winning South Carolina tonight. Super Tuesday is coming up on March 5th, so all eyes are focused on then. But we're going to check in with our team coverage as it continues with Nate Stanley, who has been with the Trump campaign at the state fairgrounds in Columbia. Nate.
Darcy, you wouldn't be able to tell from behind me, but earlier today, just a couple hours ago, this room was absolutely filled, absolutely mobbed with supporters, with media. I'm going to step out of the way so you can take a look at how things are looking right now. They have thinned out. This is what remains of the watch party, or what was the watch party. Trump left shortly before 7:30 p.m. today. His speech lasted about 30 minutes. He thanked local politicians, national politicians who came out to support him. Governor Henry McMaster spoke, as well as some other speakers. He thanked Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette, as well as Attorney General Alan Wilson. And in that speech, he said, quote, "We are a failing nation." I think we have some sound of him speaking as well, so let's take a listen to that.
This room is full of energy, and our party is full of energy like never before. And I mean it. There's never been unity. There has never been unity in our party. Just the fact, think of it, we've had a lot of primaries in this state. The fact that we got double the number of votes in history, there's never been anything like that. Who's ever heard of that?
Yeah, he spoke a lot about what needs to be right or what he believes needs to change in the country. And it was a sentiment that was shared with a lot of the people who came here to support him. A lot of his supporters telling me they weren't surprised by the result of the election today, and now they're looking forward to November and that general election coming up at News 19 at 11 o'clock. We're going to have more sound from his supporters as well as reaction from the victory today. For now, reporting from the South Carolina State Fairgrounds, Nate Stanley, News 19, WLTX.
Nate, thank you. Thank you so much. You know, back in 2016, Trump took 44 out of 46 counties in South Carolina. It doesn't look like his support has waned any.
No, and you know what? Speaking about his support, he had a crowd of well-known South Carolina politicians behind him on stage tonight. You saw Governor McMaster there. Senator Tim Scott was there. Representative Joe Wilson was there. Lindsey Graham was there as well. And in an interesting moment when he introduced Lindsey Graham, he got booed by the crowd. And he sort of went down the line and thanked all of his supporters. And then when Nikki Haley, in contrast to that, when she was on stage, she only had Representative Ralph Norman really to thank when it comes to support of big names in politics here in South Carolina. And then, of course, local politician Tom Davis, and I'm sure other local elected officials were there as well.
There is not a Republican in Congress who supported Nikki Haley.
Yeah,
Not
Nancy
one.
Mace was on the stage as well. And as you guys know, when I got a chance to sit down and talk with Nikki Haley just a couple of weeks ago, I asked her about that, how she felt about the fact that Senator Tim Scott and Representative Nancy Mace, you know, she appointed Tim Scott when Jim DeMint ended his term early. She appointed him to the Senate, and Nancy Mace, she campaigned when she was running for re-election for Nancy Mace. I asked her how she felt, and she said she was not surprised, and she chalked it up to the political elite, she called them, Darcy, and said that they support Trump because they were waiting for perhaps political favors from him.
The state Democratic Party is responding to today's primary results. This is the statement in part. It says the stage for November has been set and the choices South Carolinians will have at the voting booth are becoming clear. Voters have seen what's at stake. Donald Trump is running to ban abortion nationwide, end the Affordable Care Act, and gut Social Security and Medicare, all while pulling apart the fabric of the democracy. And that is from State Democratic Party Chair Crystal Spain.
Yeah, March 5th is the next big day to look at, Super Tuesday, where 36% of our delegates will be decided. And our J.R. Berry is standing by with our insiders to see what they think of the way things have shaped up in this election tonight.
All right, ladies, thank you so very much. Yeah, I'm joined by Dave Wilson, our Republican strategist, Trav Robertson, our Democratic strategist. All right, so today, Haley's campaign manager says she knows the math is challenging on the road to the nomination. She says that, and her candidate was expected by many in the political world to drop out tonight after being humbled in her home state. What's going on here?
Nikki Haley apparently is losing somewhere by like close to 22 points. She considers it somewhat of a win that there is a secondary voice. I think the bigger question is, will her funders continue to put money into a campaign to give people an alternative? And I think that's more than anything what she stated, and I think that's the only thing that you can explain as to why Nikki Haley is continuing to move forward on this and try to keep Donald Trump from reaching that magic 12-15 number.
I'm sorry, I just think it's funny. It's not, I mean, you've got a candidate who says she's an accountant. It's not that the math doesn't add up. There's no mathematical way for her to get there. I mean, it's just not feasibly possible. And that speech tonight was one of the weirdest things I've ever heard in my life. You know, my dad said that he ran the Anderson Oconee Pickens Mental Health Centers, and he said that the difference between people and dogs is that people can rationalize. She was on television tonight rationalizing and hoping everybody else would buy into her rationalization as to why she stays in this race.
Well, she has said all along, JR, that, you know, she was third place in Iowa. She was second place in New Hampshire. She had 43%. And if she's not anything close to that in South Carolina, when the numbers break themselves down, it's going to be really difficult to continue to put money in the tank for Nikki Haley to continue much beyond this next week.
Knowing that she's not winning any of the states on Super Tuesday as far as the polls are concerned right now, I mean, that could change between now and March 5th. But knowing that, Trav, do you think that she's thinking something could happen here with the cases against Trump, or maybe the Supreme Court rules he can be removed from the ballots in some of these states?
Well, listen, I'm a Democrat, and I don't want to see Donald Trump become president. But at the end of the day, you still have a presumption of innocence until proven guilty. The Supreme Court is going to keep him on the ballot because he's not been convicted of anything. I mean, that's just a fundamental tenet of our system of law. But there has to be a funder, whether it's in California or Palm Beach, that is running the money through her campaign or another organization to keep her in case that happens. There's something that we're not seeing here that is, but at the end of the day, the individuals who make up the Republican primary electorate in this country don't care. They simply don't care. If they did, they would have voted for her or Christie or someone else on the ballot.
You're seeing right now a play out of what we have said all along in South Carolina. South Carolina picks presidents. This will make 11 out of the last 12 presidential election cycles where South Carolinians from both parties have chosen the presidential nominee. And I think that's the important thing to keep in mind here, JR, is that South Carolina, by the diversity of our complexity and our complexion as a state, both rural and urban, when you've got large cities and small communities, when you've got whites and blacks and Hispanics that are coming in and making a blend of South Carolina, it really is a good microcosm of America and a place where you can say, hey, listen, if you can get it done here, you can get it done there.
We pick winners and losers in this state.
And here's the other part about it, JR. There are 21 more states that have to vote between now and next Tuesday. So over the next 10 days, that's where we're going to see all of this play itself out. If there's enough money for Nikki Haley to run ads, she does it. If not,
and those states aren't as cheap to campaign as South Carolina is.
No, you've got California, you've got Texas.
I mean, they're
those two right
states.
there are very expensive to run.
And I mean, I've often said what the allure of our state is: you can be from the mountains to the Midlands to the coast on a tank of gas and see hundreds or thousands of people in a day or on that trip. We are, economically speaking, a cheaper state to campaign in. And I think the alarming thing, if I'm Nikki Haley's funders, is the fact that they probably spent, I would guess, in between 25 and 30, $45 million in this state.
Thus far.
And that's not just her campaign, it's the ancillary organizations. And she still is only looking at 35 to 38% of the vote.
The only way she could really pull out of this with any level of continued momentum was to be at 45,
without a doubt,
to 40, 46%, to be able to say, hey, listen, I'm closing the gap even more against Donald Trump. And it's just not happening. So you've got to ask yourself, folks at home, if you showed up, that's great. We've had phenomenal voter turnout in this particular election. I mean, you're looking somewhere upwards of 800,000 to 1 million people who voted. And that's a great statement about you participating in democracy. And that's really what democracy is all about. It's about you at home showing up to the polls.
But I also think that let's just take, there are two other factors. One is her message about two old white men controlling both parties didn't resonate with the electorate that came out today. That's the first thing. And I think the second component of this is that, when you're a governor, you're either a governor that brings people together or you're a governor that antagonizes everybody in order to accomplish something. And I think just when you see the Speaker of the House in New Hampshire, you've got the governor of South Carolina, the guy she made a U.S. senator that would have never been in the United States Senate except for Nikki Haley. Those people came out and supported Donald Trump. They're either scared of the electorate or they don't like Nikki Haley.
It's somewhere in between, because you've got a lot of people who have gone with the political flow. If Donald Trump, people want to be with a winner. Let's just call it what it is. Donald Trump has brand. He's got name ID. He's won in South Carolina 3 different times now. Actually, that would be 5 different times if you count the general election as well. So when you look at that, the rest of the political elites, so to speak, in our state, constitutional officers and members of the General Assembly have turned around and said, listen, we've worked with her before. She's now going to have the political dividends or lack thereof in
I think
our support.
The winner tonight in this entire primary system is Henry McMaster. The fact is that Henry has been the one who has been with Donald Trump from day one, and at the end of the day, he was out in front. There's his picture right there, as you can see it on the monitor. Yep. He was out in front with Donald Trump when Nikki Haley announced she was running for president. And it's the first time I can recall this many South Carolinians not coalescing behind one South Carolinian or the person from South Carolina. And I think that's very interesting. But Henry's the winner.
Yeah, Henry McMaster does get the big win on this because he has been in the lead with Donald Trump. He was the first elected official in America to back Donald Trump in 2016. That's paying off dividends for him.
Well, I mean, because of that, he will be the longest serving governor in the history of South Carolina.
Exactly.
All right. Dave Wilson, Trav Robertson. Guys, thank you so very much for your
Good to be here, JR.
Going to send things back in the studio for another look at some of those numbers.
All right, JR, Trav, Dave, thank you so much. Let's take a look at the numbers again as they continue to come in with 86% of the precincts reporting, at least in Richland County. Here's what it looks like statewide. We've got nearly 71% of the precincts reporting. The Associated Press called this race probably 5 minutes after 7 o'clock for Donald Trump. And so Haley went into it tonight knowing that it was going to be an uphill battle. Back in 2016, we know Trump won 44 out of 46 counties in South Carolina, and it looks like history is repeating itself with this primary. So let's take a look at where Nikki Haley did well. Okay, so you see the numbers right here. She did well in Richland County. 86% of the precincts reporting right now she is leading Donald Trump by nearly 5,000 votes. She also did well down in Beaufort County, where with a little bit less than 40% of the precincts reporting, she is also leading Donald Trump by 55%. If these numbers continue to pan out, it may be a good look for Haley in these two counties. But that's 2 out of 46 counties. And as we look around the rest of the Midlands, it's not what Haley and her supporters were hoping for. This is Lexington County, nearly 85% of the precincts reporting Trump coming in with nearly 24,000 votes to Haley's more than 17,000 votes. We know over in Lexington County, they had as many as 20,000 people show up to exercise their right to early voting. And so some of those numbers being factored in as well. People took advantage of the chance to get out and vote early. Let's look at a few other counties around the Midlands. Heading down to Orangeburg County, a smaller electorate, but with 100% of all the precincts reporting Donald Trump nearly tripling the number of votes that Nikki Haley had in Orangeburg County. And then we'll move up to Calhoun County, where he did very well. Moving over to, let's double click here at Clarendon County, you can see Trump with 100% of the precincts reporting 72% of the vote. 72% of the people who showed up in Clarendon County today said that they want Donald Trump to have another chance as the president of the United States. In Sumter County, the number is a little less than what we just saw in Clarendon County, with 64% of voters showing up for Trump, 100% of the precincts reporting. We've already looked at Richland County, so from there, we'll go to Kershaw County. Numbers look good for Trump. We'll go over to Fairfield County. Numbers look good for Trump. We'll head over to Newberry County. Numbers look good for Trump. And then we'll just take a look at what things look like down in Bamberg County. We know Nikki Haley has talked about her childhood, that she's being first generation here in the United States, about the struggles that her parents had. Let's see how her home county supported the former governor of South Carolina. And as you can see for yourself, 64% of the folks with 100% reporting in Bamberg County put their support behind Donald Trump. Andrea?
All right, we want to talk about what has been scrolling right there at the bottom of your screen when it comes to those 3 questions. If you voted today in the GOP primary, you know that it wasn't just about Donald Trump versus Nikki Haley. There were also 3 questions that were put on the ballot. The first question was whether or not the state should have party registration. 73% came in and said yes, they should have party registration. There you see, question that was, should South Carolina law be changed to give give people the right to register to vote within the political party of their choice. That answer was 73% said yes. Now, this is why you can vote in either state's primary. For example, I came from Ohio, and in Ohio, you had to be a registered Democrat or a registered Republican, and you could only vote in the primary of your registered party. So 73% of people saying, though, they should register to vote. That means if you are a registered Republican, you would only be able to vote in the Republican primary. Let's go to question number 2. And if you watch News 19 a lot, you know this is something we've covered quite a bit. I've done a big story on judicial reform here in our state. Should South Carolina adopt reforms to increase the independence and the accountability of our judiciary by improving transparency and reducing conflicts of interest in the process of reviewing judicial qualifications and electing judges? Well, right now in South Carolina, the Judicial Merit Selection Commission decides whether or not the person is qualified to be a judge. If you pass out of the Judicial Merit Selection Commission, then you go on to be voted by the legislature. Now, interestingly enough, we were supposed to have a big vote of all of our judges back on February 7th. They have decided to delay that vote because there is a bit of infighting of whether or not they should reform judicial selection in the way they do it before they make that decision. So there are a lot of seats that could be up for grabs here when it comes to our judges. And then let's go to question number 3. Should it be immediate legislative priority to protect South Carolina's competitiveness in small businesses by changing state law so that a person's responsibility for financial damages in a lawsuit is based on the person's actual share of responsibility? Again, and that came at an 88% of the vote said yes. This is something WLTX has covered quite a bit as well. The law changed a couple years back when it comes to the amount of insurance that a restaurant or a business has to have and protecting that business. Some small restaurants have said we have to go out of business because we can't afford to stay in anymore because of the lawsuit insurance that everybody has to have and what premiums they have to carry. So that came in at 88%. But here's the interesting part of those questions. They're not actually legally binding in any way. Those questions are just meant so that the Republican Party can gauge their voters and what their voters are feeling on certain topics. So even though you got to vote on that today, it was just an idea to give the Republican Party what the people are thinking. So there you go. Nikki Haley taking the stage just moments ago in Charleston saying, I am going on to Michigan. And then, of course, her looking forward to Super Tuesday. On Super Tuesday on March 5th, 36% of the delegates will be decided. Donald Trump took the stage right here in Columbia. There she's hugging her daughter, Rena. That is her daughter's new husband. They got married last year. They have been on the campaign trail with her almost every day. Now, this is right here in Columbia, like I said, and that was a stage full of the who's who in the South Carolina Republican Party. Of course, if you remember the last time around, Henry McMaster was the first to endorse President Trump in his bid for presidency the first time around. That is going to do it for your 9 o'clock cut-in here on WLTX, but keep it here because we are going to be back with a lot more of your GOP primary coverage coming up tonight at 11.